Thank you for joining me today. My name is John Laffey. I'm the Information Security Program Manager at Perry Johnson Registrars. And today's presentation, we're going to take a look at what the expectations of your audit of Annex A controls will look like. It's 11 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. A few notes before we begin. All participants have been muted for call clarity. These slides will be available shortly after today's presentation at pjr.com. You can click the training link there and look for past webinar slides where you'll find this slide deck as well as any other slide deck from all the different webinars that we give. Additionally, there will be a recording of this webinar, again, and all past webinars, available on YouTube. Just search for our channel, Perry Johnson Registrars, and you can check all those out for free. Additionally, I just wanted to point out that as we go through the presentation, if you have any questions, please go ahead and type those into your questions panel in the GoToWebinar applet. And at the conclusion of the presentation, I will spend as much time as needed to answer any and all questions you may have. Okay, so today we're going to take a quick look at the overview of what is Annex A and how it's used in terms of ISO 27001. We're going to go over what a statement of applicability is and its role during your audit. And then we'll jump into some examples of controls from Annex A being audited and kind of go through what that audit might look like. And then again, at the end, I will answer any questions that you may have. Alrighty. Oh, all right, so what is Annex A? It is a table in the standard that contains control and control objectives to be used when determining which controls are necessary for your information security management system. There are 114 controls grouped into 14 different categories. And these controls cover everything from the organization of your policies to physical security, to network security, to encryption, to business continuity, to compliance. So it really runs the gamut of a lot of different aspects of information security. And as such, the table is a great reference to use when you're conducting your risk assessment to ensure you're considering all possible risks that may be applicable to your organization. So what I mean by that is you can actually go into take a look at Annex A and all of those different controls and think, okay, is there a control that could treat a risk that our organization, that may be applicable to our organization? So it really helps you make sure you're considering all the different aspects of information security. The statement of applicability. So what is the statement of applicability? It is a document that basically lists all of the controls in Annex A, a justification for whether or not you've included them in your information security management system, and the status of implementation. Now, this statement of applicability can also contain additional controls that are not listed in Annex A, so you're free to implement any additional controls that you think are necessary. These can be controls you created yourself. They can be controls taken from other control sets like NIST, CMMC, any number of other models out there. You're free to add in any controls that you feel are necessary to treat risk within your organization. But for what the standard requires, all of the controls that are in Annex A must be included in this document at a minimum. And though not required by the standard, it can also be helpful to include a reference describing how that control has been implemented. And we'll look at an example in just a minute here. But I wanted to make a point that if there are controls that you're excluding, your auditor is going to be interested to understand exactly what the justification is. And the standard doesn't allow you to just exclude controls because you don't want to or you don't have the time to implement them. You have to clearly demonstrate that there is absolutely no risks that exist in your organization that a given control that you've excluded could treat. Okay, so let's look at an example statement of applicability here. And again, yours doesn't need to look like this. This is just something very generic that I put together for the purpose of illustrating what it could look like for this presentation. But for what we have documented here, you can see that there's 3 controls, and these are the actual controls from Annex A. The first one is classification of information. Next, we have labeling of information, and next we have handling of assets. So in this example statement of applicability, you can see that all 3 of these controls have been included. In all 3 cases, the justification for the inclusion was the results of a risk assessment. And additionally, there were some contractual requirements that justified a few of these controls here. So basically what that means is, hey, we went through and did our risk assessment. We identified some risks that could exist if we were not to include these controls. And as a result of that, we went ahead and implemented it. And you can see there's a column here, implementation status. It says it's been fully implemented, reference policy XYZ. So that makes it real easy for both myself as an auditor to know where to look to see how you're implementing this, but also for yourself, for an organization to clearly identify how they've implemented something and be able to follow up on ensuring that it's been implemented effectively. Okay, so in the next slide, again, this is the text straight out of ISO 27001 Annex A. So these are the objectives that are listed for these example controls. I won't read through all of them, but I do want to point out that there's another document, ISO 27002, that is an outstanding reference to give further clarification and guidance for every control in Annex A. 27002 goes into a lot greater detail for every control and explaining what the expectations are. You know, it goes a lot further above and beyond kind of the brief control objective that's listed in 27001. So I would definitely recommend that you reference ISO 27002 if you need any further clarification or guidance on how to implement these controls. Okay, so we're going to look at an example policy and a procedure in regards to those 3 controls we looked at on the statement of applicability. And for the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to assume that the organization has a policy defining 3 levels of classification for their information: public, private, and confidential. Additionally, for each classification, the policy describes the characteristics of information falling into that category, as well as examples. So it clarifies which types of information fall into which category. Additionally, the organization has a procedure for labeling and handling information based on its classification. And the procedure also states that confidential and private information must be labeled as such in a watermark or header. Handling requirements, including transmission, retention, encryption, authorization, and destruction requirements, are also defined. So at this point, as an auditor, by reviewing your policy and your procedure, I'm confident that you have developed a classification scheme, you have developed procedures for how to handle different classifications of information, as well as how to label different classifications of information. So at this point, I'll actually want to go out and verify that these things are being done. So your auditor may want to find out, you know, which folks are handling the more restrictive classifications of information, and to conduct interviews with those folks and verify that they are in fact handling the information in accordance with the policy and procedure. Your auditor may want to verify with system administrators that appropriate access control is implemented with regards to restricted information, as well as to confirm that encryption is configured and is in place where it's needed. Additionally, with these particular controls, because everyone in the organization needs to have an awareness of this, because it would be expected that regardless of what their function is, they would be able to identify, you know, what the different types of information classifications are and how they must treat that information based on its classification. Throughout the audit, as we conduct interviews with various staff members, you could expect that we would at least ask them if they're aware of the policy and procedure, if they know where to find it. Not necessarily that they have it memorized word for word, but we definitely want to confirm that there's an awareness level across all staff members for these particular policies and procedures. Additionally, throughout the course of the audit, as we walk around, we'll be observing and looking for printed information. You know, is there sensitive information that's out and unattended? Are there things in waste bins that have sensitive information that should be shredded and aren't? Are there hard drives? Are there thumb drives? Things lying around unattended that aren't labeled? Can folks tell us what classification of information is on those devices? Things of that nature. So there's a number of different ways that we'll go about confirming the effectiveness of these controls that are implemented. And again, as I already mentioned, I just made another slide here. These controls in particular, we would expect all staff to have an awareness level of. You know, if it's a control that deals with how to grant permissions to a user account, I would expect that system administrators would be familiar with that, but I wouldn't necessarily expect someone in sales or marketing to be able to speak to that. But again, for information classification, we certainly would expect there to be some level of awareness across all staff members. And so this was just kind of a brief example going through those three controls, but basically, if I go back to our statement of applicabilities example, you know, in a stage 2 audit, we're going to be looking at every one of those 144 controls. So we're going to go through your statement of applicability. We're going to use that to drive the auditing of the controls completely. You could expect your audit program or audit plan will be broken up by the different control areas. So, you know, there'll be a block of time for access control, a block of time for network controls, and for each one of those controls, we're going to obviously, if it's implemented, we're going to look to see some evidence that it's actually implemented effectively. And in many times that will start with a review of a related policy or procedure, and then based on the information that's given in that policy or procedure, we're going to go interview the folks who actually do that, carry out that work, and ask them not only to tell us how they do it, but to be able to provide actual evidence that it's being done. That could be looking through tickets, you know, it could be a service ticket where a new user account was requested to be set up for a new hire, and we're going to want to verify that, okay, it clearly states the level of access they need or what systems they need access to, what folder permissions they need. We're going to want to see who requested it and make sure that it was an authorized individual. We're going to look to see that the user account, as it's been created, we're going to want to see the permissions that are actually assigned to it and make sure they match up with what was requested. Similarly, if there's a ticket to offboard someone, we're going to want to make sure that their account access was disabled. We're going to want to make sure it was disabled at the time they left and not days later, so that they still didn't have access after they were no longer with the company. Things of that nature. For encryption, wherever your policies state that data needs to be encrypted, we're going to actually ask those system administrators to log into some of those systems and show us the configuration, verify that encryption is in fact enabled and is currently in place. And that's going to be the playbook for how we drive through all 144 of those controls. The goal of this webinar obviously was just to kind of give a little bit better understanding of how the controls get audited. I know in a lot of stage 1 audits that I have, or even before we contract with a client, they're always curious to know how that looks. From what I can gather, sometimes in other audits, auditors will simply send out a list of evidence, you know, ahead of time, and then the client will have a few weeks to gather all that evidence and send it back. It's a little different with 27001. We're actually, well, not on site right now because of COVID. We're doing everything virtually, but we're typically on site, and we're going to want to see, you know, recent, fresh samples of various different controls actually being implemented effectively, kind of on the spot. So it's a little bit more, I think, of a snapshot as opposed to over a period of time, but it's a good representation that all the controls are in fact implemented effectively. But with that, I really would love to hear any questions that you may have and take some time now to answer those. So please feel free to go ahead and ask any questions you may have in the questions panel. And as I mentioned, I will be more than happy to take as much time to answer any questions you might have. Aside from that, that's all that was in this presentation today. So it was fairly brief, I know. But again, I'd like to thank you all for attending. And please feel free, if you're not comfortable asking questions in this forum, you can email me directly. My email address is up on the screen right now. It's jlaffey@pjr.com, and I'd be happy to correspond with you that way as well. And if you have interest in becoming ISO 27001 certified, please give us a call at Perry Johnson Registrars. You can reach us at 1-800-800-7910. And wherever you're at in the process, picking a registrar is a key component, making sure that we understand the scope, we have the right folks to support the audit, things of that nature. The sooner you can do that, the better off you'll be in planning your certification efforts. So please feel free to reach out. All right, let's take a look at the questions here. Okay, so it's a question from Bradley. He asks, with audits being virtual, what availability do staff members need during the audit timeframe to conduct interviews? So this is a great question, Bradley. What I would say is that for a given subject area, the folks who work in that, if there's an hour or two blocked out, I would have those folks at least on standby and just let them know, hey, we may need to pull you into this Teams meeting or this go-to meeting or whatever format we're using. The auditor may want to have 5 or 10 minutes of your time to just conduct an interview and ask a few questions. Now, if it's someone who's like a system administrator, kind of a critical person who's going to be the one who's actually showing us things and logging into systems and helping us verify configurations, they should expect to need to be available for the entire block of time. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much for asking. Raphael, if you could shoot me an email about that, and I can circle back with you on that after the presentation here. Oh, my pleasure, Raphael. Thank you. Again, feel free to ask any question you may have, even if it's not specific to this particular presentation. If it's about ISO 27001 in general, any questions you may have, I'd be happy to answer. Just give it a few more minutes here to see if anything else comes in. Otherwise, again, I just want to thank, oh, here we go. Another great question from Bradley. As of now, for physical security, how is that control being reviewed? Employee walk around or sending a video through for evidence? So Bradley, how we've been treating it, obviously, if it's a stage 2 audit, we do have to look at physical security. If it's a surveillance audit, we've been trying to move physical security to next year or the year after in hopes that we can be on site again. But yes, what we've been doing while conducting these virtually is having someone walk around with a cell phone, a tablet, or even their laptop in some cases with video going. And it's literally, I have them pull on doors. I verify that, badge access is working as configured. Locked doors that are locked are doors that are supposed to be locked are locked, things of that nature. So we're actually having folks do walk-arounds with a video feed to review physical security at this time. Another great question. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Any other questions? Again, feel free. Anything 27001 related, I'd be happy to answer. All right. Well, again, thanks everyone for joining. I guess it's going to wrap it up for today. Hope you all have a great rest of your week and you stay safe. And thanks again for joining.